actually going to tell you how to manipulate people, and especially I'm going to get to the point for once because I'm out on delivery and I need to, but who knows if this connection's going to last. And listen, this one's for me, and I'm just sharing. I was just talking to myself about this because I was just getting into it with coworkers, and like I just have to face up to the fact that some people are more manipulative than others. It makes sense. Some people are going to have more of an effect on others than other people do. And, you know, just like some people are taller and shorter, some people have just more powerful emotional effect on others. Their affect, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The point is, like, for me, I've lived my whole life having that effect, I think, since I was young, and not noticing it and living in disownership of it. And I just can't do that anymore, because as I've grown older, it's just gotten more powerful. And that's really, really scary, because what's happened is that whether I want to or not, if I'm thinking really negative thoughts, if I'm starting to feel like really defensive, everyone around me just starts to get this thing. And I'm sure it's not some mystical, magical thing. I'm sure I'm doing it with regular, normal, not paranormal means. You know, it's not their fault. It's my voice tone, my body language, my facial expressions, all kinds of little things that I'm sure if I saw me, I'd be like, oh, wow, yeah, I get that. I'd react exactly the same way, you know, if I saw recordings. So I'm not trying to disown it. Quite the contrary. I'm trying to recognize that it's been very, very difficult to realize it in the face of the very people who are angry at the very moment that they're angry. And it was really hard to own when it was a positive thing. You know, if someone would tell me, yeah, you just have this infectious happiness or this bubbliness or whatever, I want to be around it because it pulls me into this mood. It's like a gravitational thing or whatever. It's whatever that is, positive or negative. The disowned part, it just can't go on being willy-nilly, because then things are too positive feedback. It's always a vicious cycle or a virtuous cycle. And while the virtuous cycles are fun and I get a kick out of my own great moods, and I build on them, and I have this little bit of mania to where it almost feels like manic depression. I don't know if that would connect for you, if you have any manic depression, if you also tend to affect other people's moods more powerfully, or if those are just two totally independent variables, and maybe I'm just really lucky, given the profound effect I seem to have on others, that I have a much more mild form of manic depressive. Because when it's negative, man, it's negative. I mean, I literally 10 minutes of meditation that was meant to help me clear my mind, that like led to some thoughts of my ex and some kind of like violent feelings toward her because of some violent actions she was taking toward me. And like, it's just, which all goes back, it all ties in, because she kept claiming that it's like not her fault. And I'm like, okay, but given that I have these effects and that I was also older than her, and like, it could make a lot of sense that I could like almost induce violence in a person. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I am saying that it makes some sense, you know, it demystifies the whole situation. So, but yeah, so it's just crazy, you know. It's been ups and downs. It's been, oh gee, people love me when I love myself. They hate me when I hate themselves. Oh, well, no, that's typical. That's everyone. Wait a minute. No, this is really, really weird. When people love me, they really love me. Everything goes so easily for me. It's like, oh, come here. And they just give me a hug, whether it's, you know, the stranger down the street or the hottie next door. But then it's like people look me in the face and they tell me, I'm not falling for your little manipulative blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, you're like irate, and I was just getting very mildly irritated at you. Oh, but okay, I was just meditating, and I thought of this violence with my ex, and here I thought I could keep that inside or whatever. I didn't even think about the fact that everyone else would be exposed to it. But between being extremely extroverted and having this strange, not superpower that maybe I could turn into a superpower, it's starting to make sense to me. And it even makes sense that people made it so difficult to notice, because they didn't want me getting all super egoic about it either way. And when you try and tell, especially if you try and tell an angry person, like, gee, I'm sorry that I made you feel this way, And you're one of those few people that like really legitimately kind of makes other people feel certain ways because you have that more infectious vibe, whether good or ill. It's like, you know, I can't keep living this way. Like, I mean, I'm sure I could go on with my ignorance, but it's something that I'm deciding to change one way or the other. Probably virtually anyone who knows me well is like silently applauding right now and also rolling their eyes because they're like, yeah, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And yeah, it's just, it's gonna be for good or ill, you know, when I'm around people and they're just gonna feel about me however I feel about them, and they're gonna kind of feel about life however I'm feeling about life. I mean, it's like I don't want to say it, but I'm gonna say it because I'm talking to you, and I'm not talking to someone who's like mad at me or someone I love, whose respect I feel like I should work to have, you know. It's like a pet. It's like, take some accountability. And I've been saying this to people for years. Like, my buddy has all these problems with his dog. He just can't figure it out. And I'm like, dude, all you gotta do is look at her and know that you want her more calm, and she'll do it. And I've been struggling with this. It's like, am I like a little bit of a dog whisperer? Is that what's going on? Or is he just not getting that he could do this? And maybe it's a little bit of both, you know? Are these like totally intrinsic, unlearnable quantities? Probably not to any great degree, though there is research that shows that approximately half of all psychological metrics that all of the major psychological metrics that they have yet measured are approximately half heritable. So your quickness to anger, your proneness to depression, your happy-go-lucky attitude, that's not just a coincidence that you happen to share that core thing with your father or your mother. Especially if you even have a different temperament. Like, my father's an introvert and I'm an extrovert, and that's the most salient temperament measured of all the little parts that we've measured. Introversion, extroversion is the most well demonstrated, and it seems to be a very key kind of part of who people are. And my father being an introvert, it blows my mind how many of his traits I have, almost to the T. But then sometimes have the option of, you know, it's like I can opt out. I can like go for the part that I got from my mom or something. It almost feels like that because I'm in addition to being as depressive as him, I'm also really bubbly, and I don't think he was ever like a particularly bubbly person. So it's weird. It's all over the place. Sorry for being confusing, but yeah, no, that's okay. I'll stop addressing you. That's my epiphany. That's the part of this video that's for me. I gotta watch this again, really take heed, because it's good or ill. Like, it's crazy. It's just like, you know, you'll rarely get really radically honest feedback from people most of the time, because people can only say what they can see. And this one guy, he was an elder in a men's community. It's like the Mankind Project, and it's amazing guy. Actually, I'll say who he is. Frank, thank you for saying this so much. Thank you so much. He said, you need to face up, man. You're powerful. And it's so typical to have a harder time facing the good than the bad. Like, we did an exercise where we all stared each other down and said good things and then switched it and said bad things. It was harder to face the good things. It was harder to hear. So that, you know, hearing from my ex what a POS I can be was easier to hear than finally going even further back in my past and reconnecting to what Frank said, which he did not mean as some kind of compliment. He was probably very tempted to not tell me that in order to avoid stroking my ego and having it be taken the wrong way. And I think I refused to hear it for the same reason. But I think that maybe all of us have our little superpowers, and being able to piss people off super easily hardly feels like a glamorous one to me right now. So, you know, trust me. I gotta get out of these funks, and I gotta accept that how I feel is gonna be how people around me feel. And that to the degree that I want to mitigate that, I have to mitigate my interactions with them, but I also have to really bite the bullet and think positive, find the love, especially when I was just processing some hate, right? So to the degree that that's just true of anyone, great. This is just me realizing it of myself. To the degree that I have some kind of extra thing, responsibility, power, whatever you want to call it, I don't care what you think. It seems to be that way, and I can't keep going around just letting everyone have the same shit or beauty day that I'm having. That's not fair. That's not cool, and it's like ruining my life. So, with that, meow. I love you. Oh, the you that's me you that this is a journal for, too. Yes. It's embarrassing. It's okay, though. It's okay to